Well, hello and welcome to Nature's a Hoot. It's brought to you in association with our friends over at Orange Planet Pictures. I'm Tom Morath. I will be your host as we delve into the wonderful world of feathers and talons and answer those all-important questions about birds of prey. This time, we are talking about kestrels, those iconic British species of birds of prey. They're one of 4 species of falcons we have native here. What we're going to try and do is unpick how they hunt for their prey, that incredible hovering behaviour that if you are lucky enough to spot one out in the wild, it's probably how you will see them and how you'll identify them, just hanging up and on the breeze. Now, I will give an honourable mention to those other 3 species of falcons. You've got the peregrine falcon, the world's fastest living creature, now seems to have found its home in our towns and cities around Great Britain. You've got our smallest species of falcon, the merlin, a tiny little pocket rocket darting around the heather and the moorland across the UK. And of course you have the hobby, our only truly migratory species of falcon, sits somewhere in between the kestrel and the peregrine falcon in terms of their size, and well known for their lightning fast reactions hunting and catching flying insects like dragonflies on the wing. Now, as amazing as those 3 falcons are, today's spotlight is all about the kestrel. Now, this is a very special species to us here at the Trust, as many birds of prey, of course, are, but especially special this year because it is our 60th anniversary here at the Hawk Conservancy Trust, and we have chosen this species to focus some of our fundraising efforts on. And I will tell you a little bit more about that before the end of the show. Now, I think we should go and meet our resident kestrel Scout now, and I'll show you some of the incredible adaptations that these birds have in order to survive and what might help us to answer the question, why do kestrels hover? So we're just going to get Scout ready to do a little bit of flying out in our arena. Warning, she's quite noisy. Hold you. I think she's just excited about what we're going to go and do. She does like to come out and do a bit of flying. Before we go out though, I'm going to fit her with this, a little radio transmitter. Just in case. That's loud, isn't it? Let's take her outside. So here we are then. Scout's out in her arena. This is where she's a part of our daily Woodland Wonders display. You can see just down behind me there are some buildings. These are some of the aviaries for some of our cavity nesting species of birds that we work with here. So Scout is one of them. Our little owls live down there, and the barn owls too, because they like to roost and nest in old buildings. So Scout comes out and you get a really nice close-up view of this beautiful bird. But the reason it's so interesting is because Scout, as a kestrel, is a falcon. So we know peregrine falcons are really fast and agile flyers, and not everybody realises that kestrels are falcons. And falcons, of course, are adapted for high-speed flying. The world-famous peregrine falcon is an obvious example of this. And so it's not immediately obvious that they'll be flying in a tight-knit environment like this, but it's because it's where they would roost and nest. And I can show you some of their amazing agility as she flies through some of the trees here. Let's take her for a fly. Pop you there. Good girl. Look at that. Now, if you come in close here, you'll be able to see not only some of the beautiful patterns and colours that the kestrel has, but also that incredibly long tail. Look at that. They're very different from the other falcons that we have here in the UK because of this long tail. And this is what enables them to hover as well as they do. They've got long pointed wings like a falcon, but that long tail fans out whilst they're hovering, and this gives them extra stability on the wind. So when they're beating their wings really hard, facing into the wind, they're trying to fly almost forwards at the same speed that the wind is blowing, and that tail will be fanned right out in order to stop them moving, and they can use that incredible head and their eyesight to look down into the undergrowth whilst they're hovering. It's amazing to see. Now, it's just started to rain. We've got the perfect sheltering spot for Scout over here. We've actually installed one of our raptor nest boxes over here to demonstrate what they look like and the sort of work that we're doing with kestrels in the wild. And so if I encourage her, hopefully Scout can hop up there and shelter from the rain. So although it's fantastic to see her up close here in the woodland, it's not the best place to showcase her hovering flight. So let's head over to Reggie's meadow to try and demonstrate this now. What do you reckon, Scout? Let's go. So I'm swinging this lure here so that when she's interested, I can hide it for a moment. And hopefully, yes, look at this, right above us. Oh, well done, Scout. Keep going. That was excellent. So as we've seen, kestrels are an iconic British species, a beautiful bird, and one that is very important to us here at the Hawk Conservancy Trust too. Now, I've been joined here by our British projects manager, Dr. Matt Stevens, who's been working with this species for many years and has been involved with the projects that we're a part of here at the Hawk Conservancy Trust for many years too. Welcome to the podcast again, Matt. You're a returning visitor.
I tend to be out a lot, but I'm back now for a bit.
Yeah, you're out and about in the countryside doing that conservation work. She's so exciting.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about our history with kestrels as far as our conservation projects go?
Yeah, I mean, it started originally with what was the Thunderbird project, which was essentially putting nest boxes up to try and fulfill that need for certain species, cavity nesting raptor species, for nest sites in the environment. Maybe there was a bit of a shortage, in which case we'd hope to fill that by putting some boxes up. From Thunderbird, we developed the project slightly by exploring in a more experimental way how the provision of those nest boxes might impact kestrels. So we had a 2,500 square kilometre study area divided into smaller areas, and in some of those areas we put nest boxes, and in other areas we didn't, and then walked surveys to try and determine over time whether the numbers of kestrels changed as a result of putting those nest boxes up.
Did they?
Didn't. No.
Oh.
And the reason for that is probably for lots of different causes, but mostly it seems that young kestrels seem to disperse quite a long way. So lots of birds produced from our nest boxes don't tend to stay around the local area. So we're colouring birds, each engraved with a nice 3-digit unique code, which you can see with binoculars or a telescope when they're out flying around. We've been getting re-sightings of those birds all across the UK. So it's clear that lots of them, although they may be hatched and fledged from a nest in Hampshire, they don't stay in Hampshire. Some of them do, but lots of them don't.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
So we might get some other, well, we will get some others from elsewhere in the country, but some of our birds leave, and we must get an influx of other birds as well, as they all look around for nest sites. So that was the sort of second phase of this programme, and we've extended that to cover the whole of the southeast now, and we've been doing that for about 7 years.
A new project really over the last couple of years or so, is fair to say. We've sort of made a pledge to try to halt the decline in kestrels, and this is something we want to try and dig under the surface of a little bit, because no one's really sure why kestrels are disappearing as fast, are they? Or really able to pinpoint the exact reason?
No, it's really tricky, and you can do lots of different things, but it's always going to be a tricky one to determine exactly why they're not doing so well. And it could be for a number of different reasons. It could be number of invertebrates, which lots of young kestrels rely on during the winter. So if you drive around or walk around and look for kestrels in the winter, quite often you'll see young birds standing in fields looking for earthworms and beetles. So it could be a lack of those. It could be climate related. It could be a lack of small mammals. It could be change in the way that the habitat's managed. And I should give a plug to some farmers that I deal with who are taking huge steps to improve the environment, not just for kestrels, but for everything on their farms, which has a huge impact on how well kestrels do.
So we've got lots going on for kestrels, and this year, in our 60th anniversary year, we're trying to raise £60,000 to support this wonderful species. Matt, can you tell us a little bit more about where that funding is going and what we're trying to do next with kestrels?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, we're going to continue with the Raptor Nest Box project, which plays a huge part in what we do for all of these cavity nesting species. But for kestrels specifically, it's probably developing more on the GPS tag stuff. They're so expensive. Each one costs around £700 to £800.
Right.
Then we need a base unit as well. So to put enough on birds to get suitable levels of data that feeds back into exactly what we want to know what they're doing, where they're going and how they're using the environment, we need quite a few of them. It takes a lot of time to do it, takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of field work time, takes a lot of preparation. So that's quite expensive for us to achieve. So we're going to carry on with that. We may try and use some slightly different tags in the future, which means that we don't have to go out and try and find these birds afterwards. We have to take the base station out into the field, and we have to rely on the birds coming within a certain range in order to download the information.
Right.
So that still relies on you getting the base station in the right place. That's great when kestrels are still nesting and they're still coming back to the nest site, but once they start to move away from that area, then it's a bit more tricky. So we'd like to maybe use some different tags in the future, which are more expensive, to automatically download the data so that we don't have to use those base stations. But again, it all requires money.
Of course, yeah. Well, and Scout, our kestrel who lives here, was also helpful in this process of understanding how these tracking units are going to be fitted. She's a very calm, cool and collected bird.
Great. Yeah, she was a star. We fitted her for, I think it was about 10 days, 2 weeks with the tag, and she was absolutely fine. She did try and destroy it. She did.
She's also very tenacious.
Yeah, she did something that the people from the manufacturers had never seen on a wild bird on one of these antennas. So she managed to strip and fray the antenna, which shouldn't happen. But anyway, so they've made modifications. So yeah.
So it can be really, really helpful. Obviously, we can monitor our birds very, very closely. So if things like that happen, it doesn't get to a point where it's dangerous for the bird at all. Yeah. But actually, we can help prevent that from happening when it goes on to wild birds that are not going to be monitored quite so closely.
Yeah, and that's an important consideration for us. Obviously, we all work here because we love birds.
Of course.
And we don't want to do anything that's going to cause problems, because that would just wreck your year, certainly. So we take huge precautions in terms of how these things operate and how these things are fitted and how they're monitored and how it works. And that's why it takes a lot of time as well, because we want to make sure it's absolutely right. So the potential issues are absolutely minuscule, that really nothing should go wrong. So,
yeah. It'd be really exciting to see how that progresses into the future.
Hopefully soon, yeah.
So we've got some beautiful footage there of Scout, our kestrel, hovering. And we've talked a lot about how kestrels hover, the sort of physics of what is happening up there in the sky. But Matt, why do kestrels hover? Because there's so many different styles of hunting within the bird of prey world, but they seem to have chosen this as their signature move. Why do they do it?
I'm tempted just to say because they want to, because I know that would ruin your piece, but it's not just because they want to. There's been lots of research into this, lots of observations, countless hours watching kestrels about how they go around the environment, how they hunt and how they do things. And lots of those studies have shown that kestrels do things slightly differently at different times of year. So they will tend to hunt, they'll tend to hover at higher heights when the crop that they're trying to find their prey items in or over is quite mature. So if there's more difficulty in seeing things, they gain higher heights to get a bigger area of coverage. Similarly, if there are small patches of habitat that they'll use to try and find food, they'll go higher to see more of them. So they tend to try and improve their chances of finding stuff by going slightly higher. And you'll tend to find that older birds tend to go a bit higher as well, and younger birds tend to stay quite low. It also depends on time of year, so they'll tend to go and spend more time hovering when there's a bit more wind. Because obviously hovering, you can sort of see it in two different ways. There's active hovering, where everything's flat, calm, and it's still, and they're flapping.
They work really hard to do it.
Which is they're using about 10 times more energy than they normally would.
Sure.
And then there's just flying into a headwind at the sort of same speed that the headwind is coming towards them, just to maintain their height and just modifying their wings and tail positions just to maintain that. So that's a lot more energetically efficient. They can conserve a lot of energy just by doing that. And also hovering's way more efficient in terms of finding food. They'll tend to find 15, 20 times more prey items doing that than they would by soaring, which they'll often do for invertebrates, especially in warm, sunny days, or if they're gaining height to chase down small birds, or if they're sitting on a fence post or a telegraph pole or a pylon or overhead power lines or something like that. So those other ways are less efficient than actual flight hunting. So that's why they tend to hover.
Wow, so you're more likely to see a kestrel hovering at height in the late summer than you are in the winter.
Yeah.
Never thought of that before.
Yeah.
There you are. Matt, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to come and chat to us.
No problem at all.
All about these wonderful birds, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show again. Well, there we have it. We have met Scout, our resident Kestrel, here at the Hawk Conservancy Trust. We have spoken to Dr. Matt Stevens, our authority here at the Hawk Conservancy Trust when it comes to conservation work with this wonderful species. And we've answered that all-important question of how and why kestrels hover. It obviously seems to serve them very well when they're living and hunting out there in the wild. Now, if you'd like to support us with our fundraising efforts when it comes to kestrels, we will leave a link in the description down below. Any little really does help to support this incredible species. And if you'd like to get involved with the show, as ever, you can leave us a comment underneath this video with a question that you have. We would love to hear from you, and who knows, we might make an entire episode all surrounding your question. Tune in next month when we will talk about another fascinating topic, all to do with the wonderful world of birds of prey. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.